Alright guys, I'm just going to videotape myself because I'm not supposed to videotape it, but thought I'd just videotape ours. I'll try to turn, I'm in between Bob Daniels and Joe Newender, so I'll try to turn the phone, but you'll hear them when they respond. Okay?
No, it was just you holding it.
Yes, it was like scratching up against something.
That's scary. It's as if it was a lapel.
You want the city totally responsible for all stormwater ponds.
Thanks for being here. I'm Marlene Merkel, the Association Executive here at the Cemetery Board of Realtors. And these are our members, and they are our Political Affairs Legislative Committee members. And Eric Corzilius will be our moderator tonight, and he'll be asking the questions. And Helen Moore will be our official timekeeper with her phone over there. So you're each going to have 5 minutes. Eric will make some announcements first. And then what we'll do with this is just kind of pass it up and down the line, if that works for you guys. Thank you, everybody, too, for being here.
Just need a mic. I'm pretty sure no one needs to hear me go through the microphone again. You remember the general membership meetings, right? Well, thank you all. Greatly appreciate your attendance this evening. We greatly appreciate it. As Marlene said, we are the Political Affairs Committee for the Venice Area Board of Realtors. And basically what we're here to do is ask you a few questions, get to know you, get to know where you stand on issues that are important to us. And then when we get done and break up, then we'll get together as a committee and try to decide who it is out of the 6 that we support, and hopefully move forward from there. So anything that you can give us to kind of digest and help our decision making would be greatly appreciated. As Marlene said, each of you are going to get a 5-minute opening statement and a 5-minute wrap-up statement. We have 6 questions. Each person will get 3. And what we'll do is we'll pass down and pass back so that the same person doesn't go first every time. And any questions in regards to what we're going to do here in the next couple hours? And if not, we'll get started. Anything? Everyone got water and whatever it is that you need?
I need a little vodka.
I was just going to say, I had cocktail hours in about, well, as fast as you guys did, that was 6 questions. With that, Nick, you've got the microphone. Go ahead and give us your 5-minute opening.
Can everybody hear me up here, or would you rather I use the microphone?
You're good.
So I moved to Venice when I was about 4 years old. We moved here in '87 with my family, and they brought me with my brother and I along with them, fortunately. And back then, if you guys are familiar, about 42 years ago, there was a wastewater treatment plant right there next to the fishing pier. So my dad took a chance on opening a business there, now Sharky's on the pier. So moving forward from that, I grew up in Venice. I went to Epiphany, was my grade school, elementary school, and then I went up to Carter-Moody for high school. When I lived here, when I was younger, I was involved in the Youth Advisory Board, the Venice Police Explorers, Special Olympics, anything I could get involved in when I was a youth. Moving off to college, I went pretty close by. I went up to Orlando, and I attended Valencia and UCF. In my studies, my goals had always been to become a police officer. Well, I was a little too young, so I had taken an EMT class, because you could take that when you were 18 versus 19 to go to the police academy. Completed my EMT studies, and I loved it. I fell in love with it. My mother's a nurse practitioner, so healthcare wasn't far from the family trade. And I just kept going with it, and I always wanted to do more, so I became a paramedic. I went and became a firefighter. I went to the police academy. I got involved with the federal government in disaster response. I started with Homeland Security. I was actually one of the founding members out of 5,000 people who started the medical component of Homeland Security back in 2003. From there, I came back here for Hurricane Charlie, spent about 4.5 months out in the field, and then 2005 we went out again for Katrina, and then from there we just continued to respond to disasters, and I continued to pursue my education. Moving forward from that, I started a position at UCF Police Department for a tactical medic, and from there I took a teaching position out at on the East Coast by the Space Center. Became the program director, so I was running 4 campuses with EMT and paramedic programs. Met my wife in the ER. She's an ER nurse, and she was training to be a nurse when I met her, and I was teaching paramedic students. And we decided that there was a few reasons to move back. It was getting to be about the point where I wanted to start getting into the family business a little bit. My grandmother had come down with dementia, and I had some experience in healthcare, so coming back and helping was top on my list. And then moving my kids to a safe place to go to high school. I wanted to get my daughter into Venice High and let her do her 4 years at Venice. So we moved back, and from there I started working with family business. I still teach EMT classes for the school board, mostly at night. And I have my youngest is off at UCF now, studying nursing. My oldest is up at UF, and she's studying veterinary medicine. And from there, you know, this is the next big step for me. You know, I feel like as somebody who spent 17 years in public safety, had a pretty active career. You know, I worked 90 plus hours a week for a long time. Worked for 7 different agencies at one time in my career. And you know, I loved it, but to me, this is kind of the next step for me is this form of public service. So that's a little bit about me.
There you go.
Hi, my name is Debbie Sanford, and I'm running for Venice City Council, seat 5. I'd like to thank you for having us here tonight to get to know you all a little bit. And I actually may have spoken with, I don't know, some of you on the phone trying to resolve some issues with real estate. I am a code enforcement officer with the City of Venice, and sometimes if there's an open code case on a property, you might call us to find out whether or not it's been closed or not. Somebody may have spoken with me. But anyway, I am the mother of 6 children and 7 granddaughters. I'm proud to say that my husband and my son are both United States Marine Corps veterans. And I have just completed my 4th year with the City of Venice with code enforcement. I spend a lot of time out on the street meeting with merchants and with residents and sometimes with tourists, educating them about our city and our code. I feel that the education part of my job is the most important part. So many people don't understand codes, and most people want to comply, so a lot of my job is education. I know how city government operates. I have held previous positions with municipalities. I worked in a city of 200,000 people as a deputy city clerk, as a legislative secretary, as an administrator of a public safety department, and let me see if I name them all, as a confidential secretary. And my position, I feel here in the city, is a unique position because I do get to work with all the different departments in City Hall. So I have communication with building and housing, zoning, finance, the whole gamut, utilities. We deal with all of that. And I do have experience in creating ordinances. So that's very important, especially now with the land development regulations coming up. And I am someone who has a history of keeping the city safe. So I'm out there every day helping to maintain the safety and the beauty of Venice. And that's sometimes not an easy job to do, but I can get people to listen to me. I listen to them. I hear what they're saying. I educate them and get them to want to comply with city code. So my goal is to repair our relationship with the county, to have a good relationship with our state officials and our federal officials, and improve our water quality, and to have a proactive government and not a reactive government. So I'm going to close with that. And thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Hi, I'm Jim Brady, but you know me from my football career. No, that's not me. That's my damn little brother that doesn't return my phone calls. See, I'm getting this being a politician thing down well. 20 seconds in and I've lied to you twice. No, let me tell you a little bit about me. I grew up in Washington, D.C. Dad was career FBI. And I think we talked politics by the 3rd grade in D.C. So I did that, and I spent 25 plus years in the fast growth technology company, and architected complex information systems for companies Fortune 100 on down. And I think what that offers is in the technology industry, you're constantly learning things. The industry is new every year. So the ability to work with complex topics, ever-changing topics, and finding solutions that work for everyone. Not only from a technical aspect, but from the aspect of so many stakeholders. You're working with the chief financial officer, you're working with the chief technology officer, you're working with the IT staff, the training staff, and the end user. Again, all to find a solution that works for everyone. Besides my professional career, I have 40 plus years in volunteering. That's animal rescue, that's several HOA boards working to promote the interests of the residents. I was chair of a pro bono health services company for 6 years, where we delivered healthcare services for free to people in need, like in hospice, etc. And so, a long history of volunteering, always being, central to helping people. I came to Florida for the first time in 2006 and bought a house here. And, so I, was familiar with what the real estate market went through in the next couple of years there. It kind of amazes me that we don't have that burned into our psyche a little more than we seem to do, because I think I'm probably the most fiscally conservative candidate up here. I'm the one that's spoken about being concerned with 5 of the last 8 years, us dipping into reserves to balance the budget of the city. I am concerned about sitting into a fire department pension fund that is projected to take 8 to 10 years to get balanced. And I'm concerned that development just hasn't been paying its way, that the infrastructure that all the new development requires isn't being supported and will end up being supported by your taxes and mine. So we've just been growing a little too fast and furious without it carrying the cost. So I'm a new resident to Milano. I rehabbed a house up in Gulfgate 5 years ago, came down to Milano and bought a house out in North Venice 18 months ago. I started the first resident supported committees, pond and preserves and others. And I was kind of horrified by what the city allows developers to do. Digging lakes that are 30 foot deep without aerating them. There's a dead zone below about 18 feet. To dig them without putting in littoral shells, to not have to put in aquatic plantings. All these things promote good water quality. It's one of the motivating factors why I'm here running for council. I'd like to see us take a longer view look at all the issues and concerns we have, and build our future to have a little safety and security in case there's another recession, and just be on a little stable ground than we are today. Thank you.
Yeah, no.
Okay, can you hear me? All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Joe Nunder. I'm running for Venice City Council seat 6. So I want to begin by letting you know a little bit about me. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. Still follow the Bills and the Sabres for sure. My parents moved me down when I was about 10 years old for swimming purposes, and I attended Pineview School where I graduated. After graduation, I went off to become a chiropractic physician, still in private practice by myself, 10 years. Married to my wife, Cindy. We have 3 boys, Joey, Michael, and Ethan, 11, 7, and 4 respectively at Laurel and Nokomis, Pineview, and Epiphany schools. And public service is something that I've started in my life at a very, very young age, being involved in the community. I'm a product of the Boys and Girls Club out of their swim program. And so about a year ago, I started attending city council meetings, getting involved in my professional life. I felt very satisfied. It was time for me to go ahead and give a little bit more of myself. And so thinking about what I wanted to do, running for Venice City Council was one of my goals. And it was not a hasty decision. It was not a last-minute decision. I filed back in March, okay, with the blessings of my wife and my children. And since that time, I've been out in the community listening to the taxpayers, the business owners, the people that are involved in our community, learning the issues, rolling up my sleeves, getting data, qualitative data and information to make sure that I have a pulse on what exactly is going on in my community. So during my travels, we have 3 major issues I think everybody's concerned about: environment and water quality. We had a very bad red tide event last summer. We all know that. It affected our economy and our quality of life, etc. Since that time, I've been attending water symposium talks, multiples. I have a really good friend of mine, Vice President of Communications at Moat Marine, so I give a call out there. I'm very proactive in my approach to city government and what goes on in my community. Secondly, we have to have smart, manageable growth. And effectively what that means is that growth must, yes, pay its way not only today, but in the future, for goods and services that we need and infrastructure. But it also must be compatible. Venice has a very specific aesthetic quality to it. We want to maintain that charm. So I'm here and I believe in that purpose. Third, fiscal responsibility. I'm a small business owner. I make my dollars stretch as far as I can. I would hope to be a very good steward with the taxpayers' money and make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck. Fourth, although it's not a major platform issue, I think something that I really bring to the table are relationships and communication skills. Being a 30-year resident, I have relationships already from Tallahassee to our county government to our local government, and I think that I will always be advocating for the best interests of Venice. And if you have any questions later on in the program, I'd be glad to tell you about my endorsements and who I've worked with. The government outreach liaison, or one of them for the Boys and Girls Club of Sarasota County. I've sat on the board for the ESJ YMCA branch. I invested in Venice. So this is where I hope to be for a very long time. I look forward to answering any and all of your questions, comments, and or concerns. I'm Dr. Joe Nunder. I'm running for the Venice City Council, seat number 6.
Thank you, Joe. How about Joe? All right, I'm Frankie Abbruzzino. A lot of people primarily know me for the Scoop News. I cause a lot of pain and heartache for Helen and Bob. But about me. I grew up here, basically. I moved here in '82, and I graduated from Venice High School, so I'm a little bit like Nick and Joe here, a longtime resident. I remember the days when I used to skateboard down Venice Avenue, and the businesses were all closed, so it's a lot different atmosphere here. Now, stayed here for a while, met my wife 34 years ago. We'll be married 30 years this November 4th, just before the election. I met her out at a party at Golden Beach, back when we used to hang out at Caspo's in Turtle Beach, which Turtle Beach is no longer named Turtle Beach. And then I went off into the Navy, served my time in the Navy. While in the Navy, went to University of Maryland at night, used to have to drive up to the campus, got my bachelor's, worked a little bit on my master's, and said, well, it's time to get out of the Navy, just scratch that. Got in the corporate world, went out and started a small business, which basically is in medical consulting. I can work anywhere. Been doing it for about 20 years. And so I went over to Italy for a little bit. I wanted to give my kids a taste of a different life. We were in a wealthy neighborhood. I wanted them to experience a little bit of different culture. And where we live in Calabria, my sisters, it's more like a third world. So I wanted to expose them to that. And there's no English, so they had to learn Italian, which was nice. So then I came back here, my mom, sisters, and everybody, and I've been back here blogging about all the issues that impact Sarasota, or Sarasota County, the Suncoast, and primarily Venice. A lot of people know me as the Venice guy. Some of the issues that I've been fighting for is the red tide. the outflows. I've been pretty active on there. I think my video and a lot of my activism, if you want to call it that, were instrumental in getting the city to get the consultant, go out there and start the testing, which they're doing on the outflows. Still an issue. It goes beyond that, which we'll probably touch on. You got to look at the county level. You got to work with them because all of their outflows are dumping in there too. So the city of Venice can do a lot, but then it's really not going to help much if we don't touch on what the county's doing out there. Fiscal responsibility. I communicate my message a lot of times in the articles that I'll write. So I'll touch on some of the concerns lately have been the consulting fees, the salaries. I wrote a lot about the EMS merger. I had a lot of concerns with that. So I touch on all those issues. Developers, most people know that Mr. Neal can't stand me. I'm for sustainable development. And the realtors shouldn't fear the person that's for sustainable development. You realize there's going to be development. What you guys should be concerned about is what I am, the infrastructure. A good example is going down Laurel Road. We're a lot of talks right now before the council, the last 2-3 council meetings about widening of Laurel Road. Well, as realtors, are you going to be able to sell that home? Are you going to have as much success if there's such encumbrance as a road that's hard to drive down? If you don't have a sewer system in place, you don't have the park in place and all that good stuff. So better planning, making sure that it's in line with what the city of Venice has been going for, the whole Venetian thing and all that good stuff. So sustainable development. I'm not a guy that likes to change ordinances. Like Venice Hospital, which is county, I would have never changed that from residential to commercial, where the people that bought their house there thinking it was going to be residential are taking a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 hit on their homes. So I'm not your guy if you're looking for someone that would do that. That's it. I think that's it. I'll pass it over to Bob.
What's your name?
I'm Frankie Abbruzzino.
Head down that comfortable chair. Thanks, Frankie. My name is Bob Daniels, and some of you remember me from 2010 when I was in this room. First one, I won all the precincts by 65% against my Pipkin friend, Ernie Zovanek. And second and third term, no one ran against me. I'm from Ohio. My wife and I have met in Columbus, Ohio. She's been with me now 40 years. I have a PhD, so does she, from Ohio State University. I got mine in Vocational and Technical Education Administration, and she's in the Vocational and Academic Guidance Council. I taught vocational ed for about 20 years in school. We used to call it the shop teacher. Some of you remember those days. And I also was a self-employed, very successful general contractor in the city of Columbus there. And I specialized in remodeling and restoring historical houses. When I decided to leave my teaching job and go into the private sector, I got entertained very heavily by a company called GE Appliances. And I decided to go in the private sector mainly because of the business background that I have in running my own business. That was probably the most enticing thing. But there I ran all their IT and robotics things and so forth, coming from an engineering type background. I also was sent to GE Crotonville, which is a corporate university, and I probably have as much training as my PhD program through GE in leadership, team development, quality, finance, and so forth. My main job in GE Appliances was to help CEOs become more proficient in organizational development with their teams. I also was an external consultant for the business, GE, on new plants that were going in various states in the United States. So I had to work with governors and economic development to get funds for training. I've been here now since 2006. I moved to Lower Road, had a house built. I will say this, it's a little disturbing this time around to find people, and I think I know some of you have your pocketbooks out and wallets, but this time we have people running that should not be running. They've only been here a very small amount of time, and they belong to a group called the taxpayer group, anti-growth. They are taking PAC money from them. They have memberships to them. Anti-growth if I were in a realtor's business, that would be too good. So I'd be very careful about who you screen and look at. I happen to have a resume of one up here that I'll pass out. During my term as mayor, sorry about that. My phone's off, but my hearing aids are linked to the Wi-Fi on the phone, so they go off. Sorry about that. What I think we need to do is we need to do a better job of managing growth. Some people talk about the LDRs. Helen might know this answer, but LDRs are 1970s version, 50 years old. That's how old they are. They've never been updated. One of my colleagues here wants to rewrite the comp plan. And I'm not in favor of that because that's going to cost taxpayers money. You heard a comment about the reserves. Let me tell you something. Reserves, we maintain 35%. That's $11 million a year. And by all records of auditors and bondsmen, that's plenty of money. If you raise the amount of reserves, you're going to raise taxes. In fact, I have a sheet I'm going to pass out. Every one of their 5 statements will raise taxes. That's been vetted with the staff, finance, and the city manager. I'm Bob Daniels, and I am your next mayor. Thank you.
See, I need an ending like that. You and Bob have it down.
Sure.
That ending.
We will now move into questions. Just so that you know, there are 6 questions and there are 6 of you.
I think we'll
So
start
the
now.
first question, Nick will start. The second question, Debbie will start. Tim, you'll start number 3, so that each of you have an equal opportunity to not go first or not go last. So, Nick, and you each have 3 minutes to form a cogent answer to our questions. Hopefully, they're clear enough that you can do so.
And as you can tell, I'm very serious about time.
Yes.
You seem to be a stickler with it.
So far, not one of you's even come close to get stink eye, so I'm very proud of you. So with that, I will start off with question 1. If when the mic gets to you, you've forgotten the question by the time it gets to you, I'll be happy to repeat it. But here we go. Nick, question number 1. What would you recommend to fund increased cost of services in the city of Venice without a millage rate increase?
I think when you look at it right now, I mean, a fairly easy answer would be they're expecting a surplus of funds from the EMS transition. That money could go into the general fund or would go into the general fund, and you wouldn't have to raise millage in order for that money to increase the fund. I'm a little leery about it just in the sense that, you know, I wouldn't want to bank on having that money there in case there are some costs that come up that money should be used for. But that's one example of a place you could look at, other than, you know, maybe looking at business licensing or other types of fees and costs.
Oh, no, whatever you're comfortable
Steve,
with.
go ahead, Wyatt,
Yeah,
please.
you only got 8 people to talk to, so you're good.
I believe we really have to scrutinize the budget and find out where the money is going, and to make sure that the money is being spent properly and for where it's needed. We are not collecting on our business tax receipts. I'm sorry.
It's not you.
The way that we should be, and there are some holes in the system that need to be plugged. And I know that from my experience of being in City Hall. So there are avenues where we can go to get more money without increasing the millage.
For 25 years, I managed commercial accounts, but was also the government sales manager. I haven't met a state, local, or federal government spending plan that couldn't have been tightened up a little bit. So I do think that looking hard at the budget, we've been on a fast track of doing a lot of projects, and I think that stresses the city staff and that maybe we've overlooked some budgetary opportunities. I'd love to see the entire city staff learn a little bit more about negotiating, things down. I think we need to be careful about adding staff, which we're, currently doing as well. I am concerned about where we go if there's a recession potentially around the corner.
Could you do me a kindness? Could you repeat the question?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
What would you recommend to fund increased cost of services in the city of Venice without a millage rate increase?
Well, that's a great question. Just want to say, during my process over the last 7 months, I've been able to attend some of these budgetary meetings that our city council actually goes through with a fine-tooth comb from staff. And if you've never had the opportunity to go and do one of these things, I highly recommend it. I highly suggest it, simply because the questions that council answers about line item stuff in each budget is fantastic. It's a very eye-opening thing, and so I was able to do that this year and learn about a lot about the process. Now, I think one of the things that we can really work on is our relationship. We have a lobbyist that we have here in the city that has a really good relationship in Tallahassee and has great ROI on what we pay him for. And I don't have the numbers here in front of me, but it's probably $60,000 that we pay the lobbyist, and we've had millions in return on investment there. So I also believe that when we go, and this is what I've done as part of the process, is to meet with each and every department head about the functionality of their department, how things are going, what are the needs, what are the wants. I really feel that it's important to go to the people that work with those budgets, the processes, and the finances every day. Right? I'm very good, I believe, in my area of expertise on a professional level, and I also believe that it's important to go to each individual that manages their departments to see exactly how things are going. And so I think communication is key. We do not want to adjust the millage rate. We do not want to increase taxes. We have individuals here in this community that are on a fixed income. We absolutely need to protect those individuals. And so having the conversation and being involved in the process, attending budget workshops, attending meetings, are absolutely imperative to the process, I believe, as a councilman, to do a better job in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. You definitely don't want to raise fees and taxes. Just ask the people how Bay Indies have right now. We've had several over the last few years. I think a couple for waste management and the fees, and I consider those taxes when they go up and they impact my monthly costs. I think some areas of opportunity, I'm not so sure with the EMS. I think we're going to be using that leftover money for the pensions to try to buy those down and stuff. The budget is real tight. I know these guys, because I listen to all the meetings, they basically go through the budget with a fine-tooth comb. So there's not a lot of opportunity out there. Some areas of opportunity that I think are out there is, I wrote an article involving consultants. Over the last 9 years, we've spent $11 million just on consultants to look at our roadways. I couldn't get the rest of it because they wanted a few $100s. But I'm assuming if you look at everything, it's probably about $20 million, and I use that as a time frame to 9 years. So there's an opportunity there. What can we save? Can we utilize the city resources instead of jumping right away to a consultant? Sometimes you're going to have to. It's technical. You need a consultant in there. The other thing is, it's a pet peeve of mine, is the salaries. We pay city manager and assistant city manager over $350,000 a year. And the city manager just got a 4% pay raise, I believe. Why? We're paying a temporary 20 hours a week bike personnel for over 20 grand a month, and month, not a week. With the other ones, it's a year. But so there's a lot of opportunity to look at that and see why we're paying so much. They said it's the average in the area, but even if you look at someone like Martin Hyde, he's up there beating up the Sarasota, city of Sarasota, because they're paid exorbitantly. And it's not in line with the national averages. So looking through everything like that and trying to dissect it and seeing where we can save some money, maybe we can streamline some operations like we are doing with waste management. We streamlined that. We went ahead and we got the electric pickup. It's saving some now, and now we're looking at, once again, do we want to go to once a week versus twice a week? So doing things like that.
3 times a week.
If everybody would move up a little bit, then we don't have to microphone. I don't know. I've tried everything to get rid of that static. I'm very sorry. I don't know what to do with. But you guys, you wanna
Beat
move
it.
up a little bit? Can you hear okay?
Everybody just.
The acoustics are great.
Can you just speak up instead of using the mic, because it's.
All right, I'll try it here. How's that?
There we go, Bob.
I didn't mean you.
Show 'em how it's done.
I guess my response to the question is, first of all, we instituted about 5 years ago a 5-year look back. So every line item in every budget, finance gives us a 5-year look back. What that does for you, you can see if someone's trying to do something that they should be doing. So if it's just a repeat, it should be a small raise. I'll give you an example of how I use that. Won't mention the department, but their safety shoes went up pretty high one year, $2,000, and the look back was only $500. So why would it be $1,500 more? You think it'd be $500? Well, what was going on? The manager was buying shoes for himself, the secretary, and everybody in the office. If you see safety shoes now, you can't really tell they're not, they don't look like the old clunkers and everything. So, needless to say, you can just think what I did with that. Another thing we instituted was bid out all contracts, including finance, even managing our money. That has yielded $2 million a year on just the health thing. Lobbyist has paid $60,000 a year. Last 3 years, he's brought in $4.5 million. Bob Daniels passed public safety impact fees for the general fund, just like the county has. That generates $250,000 a year. Police working with finance to make sure that the new construction doesn't always have to go through and pay sales tax. That teamwork saved $100,000 on the new police station. Bidding out contracts and also good relationships. I wrote the governor and Lower Road, if you've been out there at the I-75, that has Bold Landscape $1.5 million that the city did not have to pay. And there's a lot more that can be done, but it's all about relationships and bringing more money in. Stop raising taxes. Thank you.
All right, Debbie, we're going to start with you on question number 2. And this is, how would you address providing workforce housing in the city of Venice?
Okay, so I've spoken about this before. I don't necessarily think that workforce housing is the responsibility of the builder. There are great programs out there that you probably know of as realtors. One of them is done by the county, Sarasota County, that income eligible people can apply for. The county will give them a grant over a certain amount of time that's forgivable after a certain amount of time. So if they sell the house prior to the amount of time that it's granted for, they have to put that back into the grant fund. All the banks offer these programs, Wells Fargo, all the big banks, Bank of America. You don't have to finance with them, some of the banks, I shouldn't say all of them, but you don't have to finance with them. People can apply for them. They're awarded grants on the same type of basis over a certain amount of time. And this is a great tool for realtors to get people in for first-time homeowners. And if they don't have good credit, the banks work with them to build their credit so that they can eventually become homeowners. I think it's really important for them to be homeowners, to invest into our neighborhoods, and to keep Venice the way that Venice is. So I think it's really important to create a relationship, the city with a relationship with the banks and the county, so we can get this program rolling, so that people are aware of it.
Well, one thing, with regards to that is we need to get, the people up in the State House to stop taking funds away for this purpose. They regularly rated, Sidorsky funds. So that could go a long ways towards helping fund affordable housing. And it's an issue, and rather than looking back 5 years, I'd like to look forward 5 years. Frankie mentioned Bay Indies a little earlier, where they just got a $100 a month increase in their pass-through tax bills. And you've got people in these manufactured homes that are living on a single Social Security check, and due to the reassessment of that property for the real estate investment trust that owns it, they're going to have 10% increases every year for the next couple of years. My concern, you know, in a situation like that is you're gonna find that we're gonna have an elder homeless situation before too long, because people are gonna be just priced out of their manufactured homes. And when you get priced out of that, I don't know where you go. So I think we need to take, you know, a hard look at it and a proactive look at it, because otherwise we'll have a homeless problem in our elder community, and a lot of them don't have family to help them figure out where to go or what to do. So it's a concern to me. We got to address it and find ways.
Okay, I'm going to keep it on workforce housing for this question, and that's a local issue that requires a local solution. If anybody in this room, I'm sure some of you are very familiar with the county and some of the committees on workforce housing that exist. It's a great group of people that come together to use a think tank model to make recommendations to our county commission on how to address the housing issue of affordable housing, and it is an issue here. It's really something that I believe relationships in this particular matter are invaluable. They are required. The county is our big brother. We need to be working for them. In fact, the Committee on Workforce Housing not too long ago gave a 12-point recommendation on how to address the affordable housing issue. And a couple points I want to mention out. They looked at surplus lands. They're looking at surplus lands in Northport and in Sarasota to develop a model to go ahead and address this very specific issue. So this conversation really, from my perspective in Venice, we really have to give, open the door, open the conversations with the county, look and work with the Committee on Workforce Housing that I'm sure all of you are aware of. I'm not sure here, but those are the people that are in the industry proactively working, and that is a very good word, proactively. I'm humbled that so many people here tonight adopted my term, so I appreciate that, yes. Copying is the most sincerest form of flattery, so thank you very much. But anywho, we like that, and there's a couple other things, too, that you can look at, and that is, with property lands, they had talked about a 1/3, 2/3 partnership where the land is owned by an owner, 1/3 property, and the people getting into the affordable housing own 2/3 of the property, financial responsibility. So this committee is key to working forward to the workforce housing, affordable housing issue in this county. And I look forward to getting there and working with the county to address this issue for our citizens. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Joe. I listen to the county every other Wednesday because I'm listening to you guys on Tuesday. You guys, me and Helen and Bob. The one thing they talked about a couple sessions ago was the tiny homes, accessory homes. That's one option, looking at affordable housing. What I didn't like about that, what a lot of people don't know, is that the home exemption is going to take a hit, which I didn't realize. HOAs aren't really binded by it, so they basically said there's going to be an issue there, and then the rental, they had some concerns there. So, but you can have detached, attached, and unlike Manatee County, we're allowing the sinks and stuff, so it's something that you could put your in-law in, or your daughter, or somebody that needs some type of affordable housing. So that's one of the options. The other thing that they're looking at the county level is the mall, Sarasota Mall. You know, it's ready to go. It's got the lines, it's got everything. And Commissioner Hines has talked a few times about that option and exercising it, which most of you guys have probably heard of. Percentage of new development, that's put us into a situation where we have to look for new opportunities because they passed a law this year that we can't really twist the developer's arm and have them allocate so much affordable housing in their new developments. And it wasn't really working. Neil will tell you they'll buy it cheap and then turn around and sell it. So it wasn't really a great idea to begin with. I myself, I invest and I'm looking for a house and I'm really having a hard time because basically I want to put out $100,000 and my idea is get 1% back, charge $1,000. You're not going to find that in Venice. So how do you subsidize that? You could look at partnerships like Joe mentioned, and we got to find other ways. A lot of people are real hesitant to look at Section 8, and I get that. But how can the city possibly work with investors like myself that want to go out and help people and bring $1,800 a month, because that's the truly affordable housing for the people that work at Fins, and how can we build a relationship like that? And that's just it. Proactively, always out there looking and trying to find new ideas, new solutions. And one thing is taking the definition away of what affordable is from the developers. When we had the individual out here at Knights Trail, I can't remember his name, but he basically wanted us to waive the impact fee. Can we look at that? We might look at that, I don't know, then our roads are going to suffer, the infrastructure and all that stuff. But he was basically defining it. And in some cases, I don't even think he was really giving us what that monthly rate was going to be for workforce housing or affordable housing. So we need to take control of that and say, this is the definition. This is what you're going to use, instead of them taking that term and using it because they know it's great leverage. When the residents hear affordable, they say, buy it. Let Neil do it. I'm Frank Abbruzzino, running for mayor.
I'm Bob Daniels, running for mayor. As some of you know, city and the county's been wrestling with what we call affordable housing. And unlike one of my peers up here, talking to bankers and having a friend that used to have a rent to lease with housing, I don't think you're going to find very many of these people that are qualified for a housing loan. And I don't think you'll find very many of them that really want to be a property owner. They want to rent. They want to rent at a reasonable rate. The Seaboard area is, I've been working with 2 investors, and one has just got some small units above a unit he has right now. And the delay on that is the planning department has to update the overlay. Another one wants to buy the old concrete factory, leave the 10-foot tree hanging up there that's growing, and also buy public works. These are investors that want to bring in what we call affordable housing. And I've done some talking to a number of businesses that are really going to be hurting because Northport, most of the employees come from Northport because Venice has a very high, as you know, realtors, cost of living for housing. It's very high compared to Northport. The problem that we'll have here in Venice, once Northport gets jobs that are paying like they are here, then those people won't want to travel up here. For example, Roberts Insurance. All his employees there come from Northport. And they're afraid once Northport finds jobs that pay like they do there, they won't get anybody coming here. If you study San Francisco, what happened to that city by not coming up with some affordable housing? As someone said, the Sadowski Act, thanks to Helen bringing that to us, that's another one I think we politically need to leverage. That's supposed to be funding affordable housing here and helping us out here. That's one of my goals, my term, because I think right now we're coming off 9 years and we really haven't gotten it done. I do have the cooperation of one of the county commissioners who is going to work as a partner with me and the investors. Thank you. My name is Bob Daniels. I'm your next mayor.
Is he still in my material?
All right. How would you address providing workforce housing in the city of Venice?
Okay, so I think obviously if anybody had the answer would already be in the process. We'd be working on this and we'd have it done. Workforce housing specifically, I think that there's a lot of confusion out there. So I think education is a big part of this in the sense that, workforce housing is addressing first responders, nurses, school teachers. That's what we're looking at. So people understanding there's a lot of programs that are already out there from the federal government that provide price breaks and funding for those individuals. All of that said, I know as a paramedic myself, the starting salary, there's just no way, not in Venice, so it's one of those that, I think everybody's addressed. We need to work as a collaborative partnership with our county government to make sure that we can identify a spot for some affordable housing, wherever it may be, and we're going to need to work private partnerships as well with the developers to try to make this work. So I think that we're going to have to, the end goal here is we're going to have to be very open-minded as to what our options are, make sure the tax burden to the citizens is obviously, not there. And then on top of that, we're going to have to make sure that we're not making too many concessions with the developers so that we can keep things balanced. That's going to be the tough job here for everybody to do is try to analyze all of this stuff and figure out the best solution. So we're all going to have to work together to do that.
presume you're going to be first out of the box on question 3. Should there be a public-private initiative to address homeless issues? And if so, what are your ideas on this issue?
I think we ought to use any means possible to address homeless issues. And if there's, good public-private partnerships that can move us in the right direction there, that'd be great. Again, we need to take a look at what federal, state, and programs are available to help fund that. So, I'd love to see that. I can't speak to, the programs available in specifics beyond that.
Well, thank you very much. Sorry that when my wife calls, I got to make sure I take that business.
Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody
Amen.
happy.
Amen. So actually, at yesterday's city council meeting, there was a wonderful presentation provided to us in attendance from the Suncoast Community Foundation for Homelessness. And I found that dialogue, I found the presentation fascinating to know that we have resources here in Sarasota County to really address the issue of homelessness. And I really like the presentation from Chris Johnson, was the young man's name, and in respect to how he commingled the chief of police, Matt Mueller, to make sure that we understood they're actually cataloging people that are homeless in our community. And in fact, if you go and look at the presentation, I really encourage you to go on the website at our council meeting, look at it. We have a lot of resources here in effect for people to use. Okay, it's concurrency of care, I believe, was the terminology that was used. And in fact, a large percentage of the population of homeless want help. They're just down on their luck. They need about 6 months to go ahead and get back on their feet. And really, it's in the city, I believe. That's where the current resources are. I believe Chris mentioned that he wanted to bring some resources down into the South County part of our community. Northport, I believe, check the presentation. But it's absolutely fascinating. And, anytime we have a homeless issue, I tend to be a very compassionate person in my daily life. We absolutely must have those resources available for them. He did speak to possible programs in the future on how to go ahead and address the homeless issue. But make no mistake, they have a great partnership with our Venice PD in categorizing and cataloging all the individuals in our area that need help. So there are resources currently out there for help. And if you had questions, go check out the video. It was exceedingly informative.
And Joe's right. I watched it, and the individual gave an excellent presentation. All the organizations that the city of Venice are currently working with, they fall under his umbrella, according to him. Then, luckily, Chief Matt Mueller was there, and he came down and he addressed what we were doing, which is pretty proactive. I think as a city, we're doing as much as we can out there. I think Mayor Hogg brought up a good issue, and a concern is when we had Doc Maru, what's it? Yeah, when he came down, we spent how much money? And basically the county and all the cities, all the entities involved did nothing. We took some of his advice, but a lot of that advice was already out there. We were aware of it. We were doing stuff. So I think we need to work with the county a little bit better and the other cities and see what we can do to come up with a better plan. I didn't realize until that presentation yesterday is that the SCSO basically brings everybody up to Sarasota, which I'm sure they appreciate. And, then they give them, Chief Matt Mueller said, look, we give them the option. We're not going to arrest them. We try to help them out as much as we can. City of Sarasota has an excellent program. I'm a vet, and I like how they go out and they try to help these vets. They try to get them to temporary housing and then try to get them into some type of permanent housing. So programs like that, I'm all for. Whatever we can do to make their lives a little bit better. Did I steal your thunder? Joe took mine.
I just want to go back about maybe 6-7 years, and this was a north-south feud about who was going to build a shelter to house all the homeless. The north was saying, you build it in Venice and we'll send them down to you. That also, we had the police, the sheriff, and our police at that time could pick a homeless person up and keep them overnight for a few days. Well, they filed a lawsuit, and you cannot arrest a homeless person and put them in jail anymore. So that locked their hands there. Right after that happened, I myself joined a group called Family Promise, which is made up of a group of churches in the South County here. Because we weren't getting anywhere, they were bringing in the Sarasota, the county, all these consultants. I forgot what the last guy's name was, but paying a lot of money and coming up with all these crazy, interesting plans. But Frankie is right. The vets do have a very good program that's heavily funded. Family Promise now is, and 50 churches involved in it, and my wife and I still are part of the foundation there. And they deal with families, and they're doing a very good job. Mental health is the major problem in this country. Florida ranks about second from the bottom. I'm happy to say our new governor did give us some funding for mental health. We are missing a shelter. And when we're dealing with single people, putting them in the certain places, they get their stuff stolen from them. So, but I think we're doing better than what people give us credit. I just had a person wrote me a whole-page letter, said, I want to know what you're going to do about homeless, and I'm not going to vote for you unless you tell me. So I would agree with my colleagues to my right here. I think the vets are very well covered. The problem is, if this guy is a homeless, we can't make him go get help. That's the problem with the system. They have rights. You cannot make him go. And that becomes a real big problem. Because you see someone there that's mentally ill or got a drug problem, you can't make them go and get help. So that is a major legal problem for law enforcement for our cities. But I will say this, I'll take Venice's problem versus Sarasota any day. Thank you.
I think that's her first snake eye.
We're pushing it.
I got it.
You know, it's interesting because I received a very similar letter to what Bob was talking about, and I spoke to this woman, and she's local, and she had said how she doesn't understand why the police just didn't take him off to jail and cart him away. And as somebody who's been in public safety for 17 years and actually had to respond to these calls, we expect our law enforcement officers to be attorneys as well on the street, that they have to now start making determinations between what's a civil rights violation and what's a legitimate arrest. So it was really nice to see this presentation yesterday because it identified that there's 27 of these groups in the state of Florida. And I agree that the state of Florida is, when you go look up north and in a lot of different places, the way that they handle mental illness is far different than what our state does. And so we're at a significant disadvantage. What can we do? He brought up a very good point about, finding funding for half of the caseworker, because they have these teams called hot teams that are going out there and they're identifying where the homeless are and trying to not just identify them and say, okay, we catalog this person, this is who they are, and this is where they are, but find them, housing first. Try to get them into an organization where this is going to get you off the street, this is going to give you the best chance of moving forward and not becoming a product of the system. They've got rapid rehousing programs that they talk about. So linking our city with that, they have an officer right now, having met with a lot of department heads in town, it's been really nice because we're already doing a lot of things to combat this. There's already an officer that's cataloging these folks, making sure that he's linking with this project, up in the north end of the county to try to get people the help that we can get them. So I think we need to look at some of the suggestions that were made yesterday in the presentation and, in comparison, I think that we are in a pretty good situation in Venice as far as our homeless situation, but, obviously we can do better and if we have the financial ability, I think that we should explore those options.
I'm going to repeat the same thing, that the presentation yesterday was excellent. If anybody, it's recorded on the website, on the Venice government website. You can go and watch it. I believe that he indicated that most of the people in the Venice area are families who are just have fallen on hard times. So we really need to take care of them. They have children. They're living homeless with children. and to get them rehomed and get them 6 months, hopefully, of a chance to rebuild what they need to rebuild is really important. And at least get them on their feet. So the program, we need to embrace that and bring it into Venice and get somebody that will be a liaison between everything that's going on and tie it all together so that nothing falls through the cracks and we can move forward and start to take care of these people.
And with that, we have reached the Wednesday part. We are now on the downside of the hump on questions. So Joe, it's your turn to start out with question number 4, and that is, what is your position on future annexations into the city of Venice?
It's a great question. So, as I'm sure everybody in this room is familiar with our JPA agreements with the county, you can go to City Hall, nice map down there to see exactly how much we have left. There isn't a whole lot left for the annexation process to bring in at this time. I like that with our current projects in annexation, we have some ability to control through our council the direction, the ambiance, or the compatibility of what goes there. In addition, we have the ability to, of course, collect on those taxes. Taxes that would go ahead and support infrastructure services, which likely, if that property was to go to a county, our big brother up there, those individuals would be coming into our community and using our roads and our services, et cetera, et cetera. So with our current JPA agreements that we have left, I'm in favor of bringing them in. I think it makes a lot of sense to have a little bit of control and say what goes in there. And so, again, if no one is familiar with how much we have left, I think City Hall is a great resource. In fact, you might even be able to get it on the website to see how many are left. Thank you.
Yeah, annexation, it's been a hot button issue on the city server email lately with a group that's been writing in. And, you know, a lot of people don't like it. I hear from, I have 150,000 followers on all my platforms, and I hear from people and I see it all where they don't like it, but I don't know if they truly understand that Venice basically has to take these in based upon that agreement. Now, I think Gates said it best, and it was about, 4 meetings ago when Neil was before us with his annexation. She said, look, if we don't annex this, folks, we don't get, like Joe said, we don't get the tax dollars and all the revenues. They're going to be utilizing all of our infrastructure, all of our services out there. And so it behooves us. Now, the issue I have sometimes with it is, why is the developer so excited to come to us? Is it that we're a lot more flexible in our ordinances and passing and allowing them to do certain things? And I'm actually trying to dissect that because I just don't understand it. I think we need to, there's not a lot of property, as Joe said. There's just a few more that are left. I think that's not even our bigger issue that's out there right now. I do hope that once we annex it, one of the biggest issues, I was out meeting with the folks at River Club for a coffee, and they were talking about their whole annexation, and we were talking about the widening and the 80-foot barrier, and then that was supposed to be given on. Then Hollick put out an email saying that Neil doesn't want to play. He doesn't want to give it. He wants us to pay for it. And then the lawsuit restricted the amount of footage we could get. So the annexation agreement wasn't solid. So how are we going to work within our means to try to get some of the stuff that we need out there that should have been maybe spelled out better? I don't know. That widening is going to be a huge issue. Something the next chamber, the next council and mayor are going to have to deal with in terms of that, because it's a hot button issue, especially with our people to the north, our folks up to the north.
You want to repeat that question, sir?
Yes, sir. What is your position on future annexations into the city of Venice?
Well, first of all, I think it's already been mentioned, we do have an agreement that was signed by the former Mayor Martin with the county and to bring in certain pieces of property. And when you look at Venice, many of the areas in Venice were annexed. They were never here originally. My thing is growth is this. When you look at these properties coming in, some people accuse or make an assumption that our standards are lower than the county. That is not true. Our standards are much higher than county. And when you look at Nudge Trail, bringing in the property out there that we just agreed on taking a look at, If they come into Venice and they meet our standards, they have to, then we're gonna get the revenue from it. Property tax, building permits, impact fees. Now, if that property stays in the county and the county develops it, then it's not gonna meet our standards. And guess what? They're gonna drive on our roads, go to the pier and fish and use our beaches and all of our infrastructure and pay nothing. That's what the challenge is. The last challenge is, as you know, the state of Florida is a property rights state. You cannot take that away. Former council before us tried and they lost millions of dollars in lawsuits. Again, Florida is a property rights state. You can only deal with density and compatibility. That's it. Thank you. I'm Bob Daniels, your next mayor.
I think it's really important when we're talking about all these things, you know, I've spent countless hours meeting with department heads and city staff, trying to get a handle on a lot of the big, you know, hot issues. And when it comes to annexation, you know, I've talked to Jeff Schrum and he seems pretty clear, and there's some properties that are left to be annexed that aren't even likely to be annexed in. Then there's some properties that are right in the middle of the city that need to be annexed in because there's no other county property around it, and they're gonna use our services regardless, so it's the right thing to do. And then there's other properties that need to be annexed in based on the JPA, as everybody's already said. So it's just one of those things where I think, you know, we have a joint planning agreement, we need to honor the agreement that we have. I absolutely agree with, you know, what Jeanette said, what Frankie echoed, is that we're gonna use our infrastructure regardless, so why would we want control over what's going to happen with those annexations on that property? I think the big thing coming our way is, you know, with this current JPA, eventually we're going to have to start looking at the future and seeing exactly, now wait a minute, are we going to focus on this infrastructure and make sure that everything's situated now and stop moving towards any further annexation? So I think that's what we really have to be looking at. But this is already kind of established. It's not a lot of land left to be annexed, and I think we need to honor that agreement.
Okay, so I believe there's either 7 or 8 properties that are due to be annexed in for the JPA, which is the Joint Planning Agreement with the county. So we use all these acronyms and not everybody understands them. So there are little pieces within the city, and if you have a city map, which I'm sure all of you do, the city is pretty jagged around the border. And then there's little pieces that are called enclaves in the city that are county owned. So if you look at a map, you can, and it's in the planning department, you can see that those properties at some point should probably be annexed in, because like everybody said, they're using our services to get where they're going, so they should be paying our taxes. The joint planning agreement has been amended 3 times to allow more city properties, and we have to understand that Venice is a hot place to live. Everybody wants to live in Venice. There's properties south of Venice that are Venice, but they're not really Venice. The baseball stadium is touted as being in Venice. It's not in Venice. So we have to, people want to live here, and we all have to agree that, you know, is this what we want to do? Do we want to bring these properties in? Are they going to pay their way? Do we have enough infrastructure? And is it going to be safe? That's the most important thing. Are our roads going to be safe? Are our communities going to be safe? All of that is going to play into whether or not they should be annexed in.
Jim?
We've talked all around the JPA issues and the fact that there's not a lot left, so it's, you know, a lot of this has kind of been decided in the last couple of years. You know, it's kind of a perverse topic to start with because we're a city of 23,000, and if we want to talk annexation, we should be annexing in the 75,000 people that think they're in Venice but aren't. But and that would actually give us the fighting weight of a city that could go forward. But you know, it all falls down to there's no way to escape the fact that 40,000 new people down in West Villages are going to be using our services as all the people around us are. You know, whether or not a few more minor annexed properties, you know, is a minor contributor to all of that. And it really goes back to the fact that we really need to repair the relationship with the county, because, you know, particularly so many of the roads and everything else are county roads, and you know, we're gonna depend on that relationship with the county, and that's not been a good relationship for the last several years. So you know, that's frankly the best solution towards trying to keep you know, our infrastructure the way it needs to be.
Throw me an easy one.
This actually is a ridiculously easy question, and only one of you will actually be sitting on one side of the desk on this question, and that is, what has been your attendance recently over, let's say, the year 2019 at city council meetings?
If you're talking online or physical?
Just been involved with it, yeah, either way.
I don't think I've missed one in the last at least 5, 6, 7 years online. I do try to go there. The problem is the Wi-Fi doesn't work with some of the servers I work with, and I work at my desk coding all day long, so it's all online, and that's why I'm so knowledgeable.
In 9 years, all the budget workshops, all the emergency meetings, and I had 3 knee replacements and a hip replacement. I missed 1 meeting.
Dedicated to your task.
Oh, I scheduled my,
How do you have 3 knee replacements?
I said 2 knee replacements.
I'm sorry.
Hip.
Okay, my bad.
Warned about it.
I know. Nick?
You know, it's interesting because you can't see them online. I've been watching them online for years, but going in person has been one of my favorite things to do, and it's taken a lot because with trying to run a business, you know, trying to get up an entire Tuesday, I totally feel for every council member that's up there because it's a very complicated process. But I've attended, since I've announced, I've attended every single meeting that city council's had, some additional meetings as far as budgets related. I think it's really it's been a completely different feel than anything sitting in my office watching it online or anything has been. But, you know, definitely for this whole year and some years past, I've been keeping up on everything.
So as you know, I'm still working for the city full-time, so I don't get to watch or to attend the meeting, but I do go back and listen to them online, as I was telling Helen when I came in. So I do go back and listen to all, it's my daily business. I have to know what's going on in the city council. So it's important that I watch it. It's part of I feel it's part of my job duties to know what's going on.
I think I've been to 5 meetings in person this year and watched another 7 or 8 online. I missed the one yesterday. It sounds like it was one that prepared me for an answer better. But, but I did miss yesterday for personal business reasons. But so yeah, so I'm getting up to speed quickly.
Yeah, let's see, I've been watching city council meetings since the last election cycle for city council. Since I filed in March, I think I've been to almost every one personally, physically, maybe missed 2 or 3. I think that's part of the process. I think it's very important to see the ballet and the orchestra that exists up there on the dais. It's good to know your council members. It's good to know their positions. It's good to know how the public reacts to their open mic sessions, comments to the dais before the meeting. So I've had a great time doing it. I think I've learned a heck of a lot, and so I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I lied. We only had 5 real questions, because number 6 is actually kind of a wrap-up. So Bob, you're gonna start, and Frank, you will end.
We have 5 and I'm counting.
Yes, and the answer, the question is very broad. Is there anything else you want to leave us with? I'm not making this up, that's what it says. So Bob, 5 minutes to enthrall us.
Yes, again, my name is Bob Daniels, and I do plan to be your next mayor, and I'm serious about that. I've served the city for 9 years. I came in with very experienced tools to govern the city. And the budget process is one of the things I'm very proud of on what we've done. The choice in November is very simple. You got some experienced people that have lived in the city for a long time, and you got people that just arrived last year to 3 years. And they're endorsed by the Venice Taxpayer League, and they're endorsed by the no growth component. And I'm going to pass out a document that's on file on recording the expenses and so forth. I do not like that group. They destroyed the city prior to us getting in office in 2010. They tried to shut the airport down, refused a $10 million check from Vern Buchanan, and probably had about 30 shops closed. And I can tell you, I can't tell you how many business people and residents have come here. I have a guy that I met back in 2010. I put a sign up in his business there, my wife did, said, I want to talk to Bob. And so I met him for coffee. He lives on Golden Beach. He remembers those bad days. He says, how much do you need to get in office? I said, well, I'm doing 3 mailings right now. It's going to cost me $10,000. I'm writing you a check right now. I says, oh, wait a minute, you can't do that. He says, Bob, I have a business. I live here. That former group destroyed this town. I said, well, you can't write checks for $10,000. But this is what I hear every day. Every day. And you people are very tied to that piece where it's growing, your pocketbooks, that's how you make a living. I would be very, very concerned if I were a realtor in the city of Venice with the November election with some of the positions that these people have and some of the noise they're making. This thing about 35% fund balance, I'm telling you right now, they have not vetted that with the finance team, the city manager, or anybody. You can adjust it, put 40% in there. Guess what that does to our finances? Raises taxes. Every position that they have, and I have them right here, that I'll be sending out late tonight, raises taxes. They don't like the comp plan. Want a new one. We paid $250,000 for this one. Pay another $250,000, I guess. Everything they want to do. They want us to monitor the ponds. That's Swift Mud's job. There's 500 ponds in the city of Venice. We have 4 in the city. But if we took over monitoring ponds, you realize what that would do to your tax dollars? It's unbelievable. Elect Bob Daniels, and I will deliver what I've done the last 9 years. And I'll keep your city safe. I'll keep it fiscally sound. And I'll keep our relationship going with all the residents, businesses, and so forth, including the airport. We've had $20-some million in invest in that airport since we've been in office. It's an excellent airport. And by the way, it does not use any general fund taxes. It makes more money in non-aeronautical, $1.5 million to $2 million a year it brings in, beyond aeronautical. The old mobile home park, that belongs to them. Condominiums, they used to own Sharkies. And, but anyway, you have an excellent airport here, and you have an excellent city. It's a very beautiful, very safe, and you know what? if we were so bad, how is it that we win awards year after year? Safest place in the United States, best place to buy real estate, best place to retire, bang, bang, bang. It goes on and on and on. I'm very proud to live here. I'm very proud to move here, and thank you. I'm your next mayor, Bob Daniels.
You know, we talk about track records and you know, everyone has something to say up here. And I think it's really important, you know, I don't have a track record in politics. This is my first go at it, and I'm excited to get involved. I'm excited to serve, continue to serve the public. I hope that we can look at the future and I'll have a good track record. That said, what I do have for a track record is my leadership. I have been involved in so many different organizations. I've been a community servant since I was a kid. My family has provided a lot to the community. I've had the pleasure of being a part of that and following that leadership. What I've done on a national level all the way down to a local level, I hope speaks volumes to what I'm going to bring to the city as a city councilman. I've always strived to be the best I can be, and that's the commitment that I make to this city, is that if I'm elected, I'm going to be the best city council person that you will elect. All I can do is come to work, be honest. You know, I like to be able to look at people and tell them honestly, I'm sorry, that just doesn't seem feasible. Or, yeah, I think we can look at that. The most important thing is I'm open-minded. I'm going to keep an open mind. I'm going to talk to the residents. I'm going to talk to our visitors, our businesses, and I'm going to take all of that information and try to make the best educated decisions that I can make as a city council. You know, you can go to my website, you can look, you can see all the different programs that I've been involved in. I hold many certifications. I've responded to many large, complex events where I've had to make very critical decisions. You know, so I do have a lot of experience in the government sector. I've been a tenured faculty for a state college. I was the union president for a state college. I have a lot of experience dealing with budgets and dealing with personnel and staffing issues. So, you know, that's me. You know, I hope that everyone can read through what everyone says up here and see the real person that is actually going to be helping run the city. Thank you.
Okay, so I have over 15 years public service experience in all facets of government. So I know how government works, and I also am pretty versed in how the city of Venice works. I'm not going in there learning, I'm going in there knowing, and that's a big difference. I also have a small business in the city. I don't think I mentioned this before. So I have experience running a business, budgeting. I had to write budgets as a deputy city clerk. I have extensive experience working with the legislature. So all of this experience I am bringing with me to the office. And again, I am not a politician. Oh boy, it's a lot of fun, let me tell you. That's the fun part. But I want to work for the residents of the city of Venice. That's my goal. I want to be able to have town hall meetings. I want to have a report card done every year to let me know how I'm doing. That's important to me. I'm here for them, not for me. So you can go to my website. I have a Facebook page. Check it out. And I hope I earned your vote.
So yeah, I'm the new kid in town, only 18 months, and someone has suggested that doesn't give me the right to represent Venetians. I think every Venetian ought to be more involved. I was surprised that there weren't people to prevent a candidate from walking in unopposed, a candidate that's got connections to apparently big money that can send out mailers and say that I'm as scary as a first-time brain surgeon. This is funny stuff. Obviously they're concerned because I want to represent citizens. It's what I'm about. It's my 40 years of volunteer history have been all about that. my many years of watching government, if not being involved in it, closer than I suspect anybody. You know, I got a lot of learning to do, and I'm willing to do it, and I'm used to learning a lot coming from the tech industry. And I want to represent the citizens, and I want to make sure that our property values and our fiscal, you know, considerations are stable and secure for the future. Because the best thing for you as realtors is solid property values that don't waver in a city that keeps pace with development. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think in some of the literature I've read or websites, it's been said that this is a contest by my opponent, contest that he jumped in second to last day before because I didn't have anybody running against me. Now, ask yourself this question. Is that a really valid reason for somebody who's concerned about Venice to be running for an elected office? Sounds a little backwards to me. And I don't think it's a contest. I think this job is a commitment. It's a commitment from me to the taxpayers and voters in Venice. It's a commitment to the small business owners. It's a commitment to my community that I grew up in. So I've been here a very long time, involved in my community, reaching out, doing things, and I do believe that experience matters. Absolutely, experience matters. Also was suggested that I might have ties to big money. Completely false. I have my own money. I'd like to think I do very well. I donated $20,000 of my own money when I filed to show how serious I was to run my campaign and win this election. I am absolutely 100% vested in Venice. And I'd like to throw out a little phrase that my parents told me as a young man. You are the company that you keep. You're the company that you keep. Look who is donating to the people up here that are running. Look at the endorsements they've been getting here locally. Look at the checks that are on their financial rolls. Mine happen to come from physicians groups, attorneys, friends, family, patients, people with long-standing relationships with Joe Nunder over 30 years. Venice is too important. This election is too important to allow people to manipulate the system with false narratives in order to try to come in here and win an election. So, being vested in Venice and knowing that people are the company they keep, I would like to say this. If you're looking for an individual that has relationships that have been tested for decades in Tallahassee, then yes, I'm your man. I've been involved in politics. I've been involved in lobbying for my own profession since I've been in practice. I have a senator's endorsement, yes. 2 House of Representatives, local, North and South County. Do I have their endorsement? Absolutely. All 5 county commissioners? You betcha. State Attorney Abbruzzino? Absolutely. What does that mean? When those individuals put their names next to mine, that is an honor. That means that they see Joe Nunder trying to do a good thing in his community, and it's incumbent upon me to perform and do a good job for my community. And so, in closing, you really want to watch the individuals that are aligning themselves with malicious and poisonous organizations that go out there to slander, misrepresent the community on factual informations. And I didn't bring the paper, but I'm going to put it on my website later. There was a great editorial in the Gondolier not too long ago about having 3 new candidates to flip the council. 3 new candidates that have never run for public office before. 3 new candidates. What does that mean? Well, follow the endorsements, follow who is being pushed by organizations, and you will see that they are not vested in Venice. I don't know about you, but I've been doing this since March, not Thursday at 4 o'clock before the 12 o'clock deadline. I look forward to being your next city councilman, seat 6. I'm Dr. Joe.
I don't know if you guys notice, if you know this about me, I'm very critical of Ms. Moore, Mr. Daniels, even this guy over here, this reporter, Mr. Kimmel. And you'll notice that we're very cordial. there's not a lot of arguing and stuff. I'm not temperamental. Bob and I don't agree on a lot of stuff, but I'm not going to beat him up outside. He's not going to knock me over the head. And I like that relationship that we have, and it's something that I think we need on the council. I think some of the people involved here may not bring that relationship to the council and to the county, for that matter. What I would do is, you got a lot. The next candidate is our mayor-elect or council member is going to have to focus on LDRs. It's very important. Basically, you got the comp plan. I don't, you can't rewrite the comp plan. It's done. I was involved in it. I watched the whole process. You know, if individuals that want to rewrite the comp plan were involved during that process, it might have been a different comp plan. And, you know, I watched it all the way through. I wrote a couple articles on it, and I was pretty involved in it. The LDRs is going to basically tell us what we can do, how you can do the ordinance, how you can build and follow the comp plan, and that's where it's important. We got a couple public workshops. Hopefully everybody that's listening will go to the public workshops and get involved. As most of the politicians and Earl will tell you, most people don't get involved. I could tell you I could put out an article involving local city politics. It might get 30 people that read it, but I put a lost dog and I get 20,000 that read it. It's kind of amazing. So that's going to be important, and you want someone that's in there that can work with the LDRs and getting them the best for our city, for our community, something that I've lived in for 37 years here. The airport, that's going to happen. It's a done deal. And to be quite honest with you, we need it. We're at 98% occupancy in the county. The business owners want it. The community wants it. I'm not for the Sheraton, especially with their last design, and they're going to come back up. But I'm thinking, well, we got the airport hotel there. Do we really need the Sheraton? One thing I want to look at is the infrastructure. You know, how are they going to exit off there? How are we going to handle that? The sewer. I wrote the city, and he said, well, we're at capacity. And I said, well, what's capacity? You know, is 98% capacity? What's capacity? And so I want to make sure all that is in place for us as a community. The outflow situation, I don't want that to die. It actually, we knew about this back in 2012, guys, and it died. It just sat there. We hired a new consultant, and we're back on it. Is it going to cost a lot? Yeah, but that's where you got to be able to work with the county and go to those guys and say, look, the septic tanks, what are we going to do there? You might think it's easy, but it's not. These people have to pay for it, and most of these homeowners don't want to pay for it. They just don't want to, which I wouldn't want to either. So that's going to be a huge issue. What can we do to try to prevent that? Just doing some basic stuff. The Florida Friendly, we're reworking that now, making sure it's right for our community, make sure it's right for our environment, the final draft once it all comes through. I live in Pine Brook. I don't use fertilizer at all. I don't use Roundup. I have weeds. I got to pull them all the time. I don't do that because the study says just casual spraying can get you cancer. So I like to take steps in that direction. EMS, wasn't a fan of it. I own a medical billing company. A lot of numbers weren't adding up. My problem with the whole thing was there were a lot of disconnects, and nobody was breaking down the disconnects. Nobody was stopping and saying, hold on. I probably echo what Gates said yesterday about it. But it's done. It's a done deal. So what can we do to ensure that that works? We need it to work, okay? I'd look at the salaries, the consultants, and all that stuff, and then the growth. Again, a lot of people think if you're sustainable growth, you're against growth, and that's not true. At least in my mind, it's not true. My mind is making sure that we're following the LDRs, following the comp plan, and doing what's right for the community. There's going to be development. A lot of people were upset that Casada and Miller were building at Pineapples. Well, guess what? They were within the ordinance. They're doing what they can. I don't think they came to council at all. They didn't need to for variances, if I recall. So you got to look at all this different stuff and making sure the community knows. I talked to the ethics lawyer, and I can keep the scoop, which would probably drive a lot of people crazy. But I would use that as a vehicle to put out information to the people like I do now, because I think a lot of residents aren't well informed as to what's going on in the community. They listen to a lot of individuals that put out information that may not be accurate. And so, and again, a lot of times I'll see information and I'll put out my version. One thing you learn in the media is you got the facts, and then you got where people will tell it based upon their opinions and stuff. It shouldn't be, but it is. And I consider myself more a news than reporter, so you got some opinions in there. I think that's it. So I'm Frankie Abbruzzino. If you go to frankieabbruzzino.com, you can find me, or the Scoop News on censorreport.com. And I'm going to replace this guy here. Oh.
And with that, I want to thank all 6 of